Now, if you're new to the Haven and to our Lunch and Learns, let me introduce myself. My name is Michelle. I'm the founder and lead director of the Haven for First Responders. I'm an 18-year police veteran, and I love mental health work. It's my dream that all of our public safety personnel, military members, and their families would wake up feeling empowered and anchored with the tools and resources to overcome every challenge every day. And that's what we do at the Haven. Now, moving on to our Lunch and Learn. So welcome to the Haven's YouTube channel, where we are now posting our Lunch and Learns. And we're so honored to have you join us today, or any day. And I want to begin with this thought. In high stakes environments, we don't always get ideal conditions. So the question becomes, what safety can you access in real time? This session helps us to build a circle of safety that works where we are, not just where it's comfortable. Watch now, and for deeper hands-on integration, explore the Haven's experiential programs. We'd love to see you there. Now, to begin with, as we always start, we're going to take 30 seconds to do some heart-focused breathing. And what we will do with that is we will take deeper breaths than usual, and we will imagine the air coming in through our chest and our heart area and out through the chest and our heart area. And this is founded by HeartMath. Okay, I invite you to close your eyes if it's comfortable for you. Let's begin. Thank you. Thank you for joining me in this. And the intention behind the heart-focused breathing before we begin is to activate the wisdom and intuition of our hearts, because our heart brain is so much more effective than the brain in our head. All right. So we mentioned earlier talking about the conditional and unconditional safety supports, and we really want to further understand those pieces. So what we're intending to do today is to just create that understanding of what conditional, which are external safety supports are, as well as which supports are unconditional and they're internal and therefore always available to us. And we want you to have the opportunity to expand your circle of safety, right? So that it's accessible in more environments and more often. Because the more unconditional supports we have, the more resilient and mobile our safety actually becomes. And it also supports us in creating safe spaces for those around us. Because when we talk about, especially from an organizational perspective, on safe spaces and places of safety, how do we really know what those are specifically when we don't even know what our own are? So it always begins with us, right? And the question that we have is, what is in your circle, right? Because in our last session, we explored how safety is biological, it's physiological, and it always begins with the self. And today, we're going to look at something very practical. What do you actually need specifically need in order to feel safe? Because all of us have a circle of safety, whether we've defined it or not. And awareness of this piece is key. So that's what we're going to work on today. Now we're going to talk about two categories of our safety supports, and we're going to look at our circle of safety through those simple lenses. And the first lens is conditional safety supports. And those, as I mentioned earlier, are external. And they depend on your environment, they depend on the people around you, they depend on certain tools, like physical tools that you might need, and they also depend on timing. So, an example of that might be a quiet room or having a specific person supporting us. Maybe it's time off, or maybe a special room that helps to support our discussions. Maybe it's access to nature, or even just a physical space. Routines are another thing that can create safe spaces for us. And they're so incredibly valuable. And they're not always available in the moment. Whereas unconditional safety supports are internal and are portable, and they travel with us. And examples of those would be breath, maybe breath work, awareness, grounding through the senses, self-talk, micro movement is another one, and orienting to the present. One other that what I find very powerful is our regulation practices. Absolutely key. And these allow us to create safe enough moments anywhere. Dr. Amy Apigian reminds us that when we cross the critical line of overwhelm, so I'm just going to remind us, and for those of us who are new, critical overline is basically the critical line of overwhelm is when we are stressed, we have the capacity, right, to be able to work through that stress, that moment of challenge or moments of challenge. And what crosses us into overwhelm is when we go from too much too fast and too little for too long in that stress moment. Then we end up in overwhelm, which some people call trauma, right? And so when we cross that critical line from stress to overwhelm, it's often because we don't have access to our usual conditional supports, just the ones that we mentioned earlier, and the ones that we're going to help you define for yourself. And we haven't built enough unconditional ones. And this is just something for us to work on, right? It's simply information. Now, you might ask yourself, why does this even matter, right? And Deb Dana reminds us that safety is detected, not declared, right? It's detected in our electromagnetic field. And our electromagnetic field, as I'll remind you, is a field that extends around our heart, approximately 8 feet for humans, 200 feet, up to 200 feet for horses, right? And it contains our emotional data for us to feel and others to perceive, whether they're aware of it or not. So it's detected, it's not declared. You can say whatever you want, and it's felt. And if we relied on conditional safety, which many of us do, I'm very guilty of this myself, right? Our nervous system can become dependent on external conditions. And when those conditions disappear, we kick into our survival responses. and those survival responses increase. And we think if we consider ourselves as public safety personnel, or anybody, honestly, but that is our focus, this is critical because we can't always control our scenes that we attend, the timing, the people, and the pressure, right? And we can expand our internal access points, right? Our unconditional pieces of safety that we list. Now, Dr. James Doty reminds us that if we're not regulated, the middle ear doesn't function optimally. And when it doesn't function optimally, we miss tone, we misinterpret communication or potentially, and communication and connection can actually break down. Whereas our unconditional tools that we can access anywhere, anyhow, once we're aware of them, help us to restore and support our ability to hear, to connect, and respond accurately, compassionately, right? Now, we love at the Haven to refer to all of these pieces through our horses, our herd of horses, because our herd, they don't lie. They just have such wisdom to share with us. And Linda Kohanov and her work reminds us that horses do not rely on perfect environments, right? And they don't rely on controlled settings. They wouldn't be able to do that, right? They're wild animals and they're prey animals. And they always have access to breath, movement, and awareness. And how that translates for us is that because they are able to so quickly go back to grazing, we have that opportunity as well. And when we look at the translation, we look at our conditional safe spaces that we've created, maybe at work, maybe at home, our time off, right? Our tools and resources that are physical, that, come to us, along with our unconditional of our breath under pressure, right? Our grounding mid-call, our awareness in conversation, and regulating tone in real time, supporting not only ourselves and our nervous system, but the nervous systems of those around us. And both matter, both are very important. And yet, we have to remember that only one is always available. So while we encourage everybody to have those lists, just be aware of those conditions and those unconditions, right? So one of the things that we can do is we can map out our circle. And what I'm going to invite you all to do is to quickly map up and map out our circle of safety. So I'm going to invite you to reflect on identifying 3 things that help you to feel safe. 3 things. Write them down. When you write them down, rather than typing them, you actually reinforce the memory of those pieces. And then sort them. Are they conditional, basically external, or are they unconditional, internal? And they're not right or wrong, just notice, right? And ask yourself, if my conditional supports were unavailable, what would I still have access to? And write that out, right? See if you can figure out one unconditional support that you can strengthen this week. That every single day, sort of like working out at the gym, right? Whatever self-care pieces you use, right? One unconditional support you can strengthen this week. And there are all kinds of practices that you can learn that we have on our site. We look forward to sharing them with you to be able to help create small moments of safety in the here and now, regardless of the tools. So, what's really important that we would love for you to take away from this is that there's no right or wrong support. They are all incredibly valuable. Conditional supports are so important and they're limited by context, understandably. Unconditional supports are portable and they're expandable, not expendable, expandable, right? You can use them in your cruiser. You can use them in your corrections office, in the cells. You can use them in the hospital. You can use them in any public safety personnel area. You can use them at home with your family. Sometimes that's where we need them most, right? And resilience increases when both of these conditional and unconditional aspects are understood. Now, I want to tie in the leadership piece to this. Simon Sinek, from his brilliant Infinite Game, reminds us about sustainable systems because, folks, everything that we are doing here are infinite games, and we want to have that infinite mindset to be able to play the infinite game successfully and to make sure that our systems are sustainable, right? So when we provide conditional safety, right, which is structure, maybe time and support, and teach unconditional safety, like skills, breath work, all kinds of pieces, regulation, physiological awareness, and awareness in general. We build long-term performance, sustainable wellness, and adaptable teams ready for the infinite game. So I invite us all to consider the following. Is my circle of safety available only in ideal conditions, or is it accessible when I need it the most? Right? Because we're not removing support, we're expanding our access to it. Because safety and the more you carry within you allows you to become more effective everywhere you go. Again, for a deeper dive, come and check out our programming at thehaven.cloud because together we can.